good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever we are. It is raining like everything outside, and there's been a lot of forest fire activity in and around where we are, and not close, but worrisome. And so the more rain, the better, just not too hard, not too much, too fast. So it looks like things are going to be turning around for September, which is next week. So just before we get started, I'm going to take a quick sip of my warm beverage. Oh, hot. Warm beverage. Alrighty then. Here we are. And because September is kind of peeking over the corner at us and saying, hi, I thought I would talk about something that happens every time we shift gears. Every time, without fail. Somebody doesn't get the memo. Every time. Doesn't matter whether we all say nod your head if you got the memo, and everybody nods their head. There was somebody who was just nodding their head to the music that they're listening to in their head. And then comes the confusion. And there's a very famous comment, beautiful quote. Maya Angelou said, and it was repeated, people tell us who they are. Why don't we believe them? And the fact of the matter is, I believe that her brilliant, poignant statement needs one small little addition to it. And that is, people tell us who they are. We are using our values on their words. The truth gets lost in translation a lot of the time. That's what I think. I don't think that everybody is out to announce it and then say, well, I told you. I don't think that's the case. I think what often happens is somebody shows you, tells you, presents it, and somehow the message is blurred. We from our own background, our own lives, our own experiences, the filters through which everything comes in and gets sorted, we don't see it and hear it the way it was presented. And one of the things, I don't know if you were part of the ABCAST that I did, when I was saying the most interesting rule when you're coaching performers, presenters, that makes them stop and blink. Fascinating rule is this. People don't hear what we say. People don't see what we do. They see it through their filters. They don't see it or hear it through ours. And so our purpose, our intention when we say, as my father said when he took me sailing, and the wind shifted and the boom was coming around, and he said, duck. We were on a lake, and I stood up and said, where? And then the next frame of the video is him pulling me out of the lake with my glasses on sideways, going, he said, duck means bend over. The boom is coming. And I said, we're on a lake, there are ducks. And he said, oh, okay. So we both learned a lesson that day. So he said, well, what do you want me to say? And I said, boom. And he said, yeah, that would work too. Wringing out my clothes. Did you have fun at the lake? No. Him, yes. Me looking at him looking at me. What? And so when someone says, behaves in thought, word, or deed, a clear and transmits a clear message to them, we may not get it. We may not receive it. We may filter it we may say to ourselves, well, they couldn't possibly mean that. I mean, they couldn't possibly mean that. And then when it turns out that that's exactly what they meant, we then fall back on the Maya Angelou. People tell us, why don't we believe them? And the other thing, I think, is that there is a foggy gray area when it comes to the definition of trust. I'm going to take another sip and then I'll explain that to you. Every client I've ever worked with, whether it was for personal coaching, consulting, to be able to present a more coherent version of themselves to the world, whether it was somebody who wanted to rebrand and present a more coherent version of themselves to the world, or they wanted to write a book and get the thing that's stuck in their heart out onto a page over there, so that they can look at it and love it from a safe distance and not stay stuck in it. We always hit a wall when we suddenly realize that what we're trying to say and why we're trying to say it is not coming through loud and clear. Well, how could they not understand that? And the answer is, well, we don't know who they are. We don't know where they're from. We don't know what the story is. We don't know what their definition, their own little dictionary of terms means. And so, well, how are we supposed to know? And the simple answer is, you ask. The simple answer is, what do you mean by that? Well, I can't say that to everybody. Well, then you're doomed to a life of bitter disappointment, because we need to get translations in order to understand what is actually going on around us. And does it take a little longer? Yes. But, stubbed noses and toes and hurt feelings are rescued, are saved from impending doom. So in the conversation, what I said today, why do we allow people to ignore our boundaries? What is up with that? Our boundaries matter. And the answer is, we don't think they will. If we get to know people and we develop an easy familiarity with them, we make an assumption, we come to the conclusion that they get us. And they may get us, but they may not get the finer subtleties, the finer nuances, and we may not get theirs. And when we turn around and say, I trusted you, we layer that with emotion. How could you do that to me? I trusted you. That's not what trust means. It doesn't mean betrayal. It doesn't mean willful harm. That's not the definition of trust at all. You can look it up. I already did many years ago. Trust is the ability to reliably predict behavior. How? Based on observed behavior, based on evidence. That's called pattern profiling. If a person is always 5 minutes late, the chances are when they say, I'll pick you up at 8, they're going to pick you up after 8. Why? If they said 8, but they're always 5 minutes late. Well, they won't do that to me. Yes, they will. It's got nothing to do with you. It's got to do with their sense of time, their sense of priority, promptness, and the sliding value on their words. Well, that's insulting. It may or may not be meant as insulting. If you're waiting for someone and they're latest, oh my God, go back inside the house, take off your fancy clothes and put your pajamas on and turn on a movie. Doorbell rings. Go in your pajamas with the popcorn and the remote and open the door and say, yes? Aren't you ready? Aren't you here for the date? I was ready 40 minutes ago. I was ready an hour ago. You didn't show up. You didn't call. I made other plans. Well, what are you doing? Well, I'll tell you, it's none of your business. I'll tell you. Why the attitude? Because we made a deal, we made an arrangement, and it was a specific time, and I was ready, and that you couldn't make it didn't mean that you didn't need to call and let me know. And the person sometimes says, oh, for God's sake, good thing you didn't go on the date, because that's not the person you want to go on a date with. If they say, oh, look, I'm so sorry. You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay, well, let's try it again another time. Slam. Because you ignored my boundary. You set the boundary. I agreed to the boundary. You ignored the boundary, and then you didn't have the common courtesy to say, sorry about that. It had to be prompted from you. So now here we are coming back. And for a lot of us, I noticed something on the news here in the Ottawa area, that there are a lot of workers who are now, I don't think right away, but at least by October, who have been able to work part-time from home. They're expected to be working 5 days a week again. This is a big shift, because I know a lot of people who are saying, oh my God, I only go in 1 day a week and it always seems to be raining. Well, now they get to go in 5 days a week and have a shot at it sometimes not being raining. Who's going to train them? Who's going to get them back in step, in sync, in rhythm, ready? Who's going to get them reminded of the common courtesies and boundaries? Who's going to remind them that there are obligations and expectations? Well, if they have, if they realize that they've forgotten a lot of stuff, the good thing would be to reach out to me, because this is what I coach people on. Resets, pivotry in motion. Oh yes, start again. We do it this way. Oh, maybe we don't do it this way anymore, but we certainly don't do it the way we were doing it at home in our pajamas. So the conversation today, when I posted the title, I also said, Vikings Invented, underestimate me. That'll be fun. And I added that secondary line, that subtitle, to the video, because it is easy to say, oh, well, bygones be bygones. You didn't mean it. We'll do it next time. Sure. Now let's go back and do the math. Who was inconvenienced? You? I see. Were they inconvenienced? No. Were they sorry? Don't know. Okay. Then why are you giving them a free pass? You had a deal. You may have had an unspoken deal, an implied deal. They broke it. We didn't stop them. They think, cool, I can do that anytime. I can take a shortcut to where I'm going and pick up a few things along the way. Really? You think so? Okay, then. Because when we allow people to break our rule, we are telling them we don't follow up on our rules, on our standards, on our terms. We have no backbone. We have no willpower. Kindness is not weakness. Kindness is literally giving someone the benefit of the doubt. If people take advantage of it, they need to be explained to that that's not acceptable. If they've never had it explained to them, or if they didn't care and just moved on, and if we can take a look at the trajectory of their oh well, que sera, sera, movings on, then those people did tell us who they were. And we, for some reason, didn't believe them or didn't understand the term the way they meant it. But when they take action, and the action matches their words, now you know. And what are you going to do about it? So I may have mentioned, you may have noticed in some of my talks that I have Viking ancestors. And Viking ancestors means that however I behave and however I am and however I work at what I do and however I show up for my relationships, what is bred into me is a place where the buck stops, where the answer is check, please, where the answer is no words at all. And if you're wondering where I am and you turn and look over your shoulder, that would be me walking down the dock, getting into my boat, untying it from the dock and rowing away. Because that's how Vikings survived. They could fight, they could flee, or they could just exit because what was going on wasn't worth their time. It had no value to them. Now, the interesting thing about being a military child is that because so many times in my life the rules changed on a dime, go to school in the morning, come home after school, and the lovely, tidy living room is full of boxes that weren't there in the morning. What are the boxes for? Well, we're moving. Dad got his traveling orders. We leave next week. So these boxes are yours. That's how many you can have. And we have to get packing. And you stand there and you say to yourself, so I'm not starring in the school play next week. And they look up and say, well, of course not. How could you? We're leaving. So what it teaches a military child is that no matter how deeply we invest, with all our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our commitment and love, sometimes we come home and there are boxes in the living room. And it turns out we're moving. Something changed. The status is no longer quo. And when that happens, the first few times I did the prerequisite tantrum on the floor. And when I was very young, my parents hugged me and said, there, dear, it's going to be all right. And as I got older, they said, all right, sweetheart, you know how this is. You've got da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I would sniff and I would go to my room and start filling my boxes. And then eventually when I came home and I saw the boxes in the living room, I just didn't react because this was the life my parents chose. And until I was old enough to go out on my own, it was mine by association. So here we are back to the beginning part of this conversation. It is the 28th of August. So this is a long weekend. Probably a lot of people are taking Friday off as well. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, the last kick at the can, the last hurrah, the last running around madly getting school supplies for the kids, the last taking measurements and looking at what we're going to do with the spare room when they're not home. There is another shift going on. And I often joke when I semi-joke when I say, you know, when you first go to school, the first time you officially leave the house and you go away for at least half a day, if not the whole day. The biggest surprise is the number of complete strangers who think they are the center of the universe. What's up with that? They are each having that same thought, looking at everybody else and us. We at home in our protected environment, protected in some way, shape, or form, maybe not perfect, but our bubble, we thought we were the only one. We might have had older or younger siblings who were lovely or awful, but we thought really, you know, when they're out of the way, it's us, right? And then we go to school for the first time and holy cow, we're not first. We're not even 10th. And at recess, there's thousands of them. And it's disorienting. And it's upsetting. And it's scary. And it hits us in a lot of ways that the promise that our parents made, that we mattered, that we had our safe spaces in our home, they're gone. And a lot like dogs who aren't sure we're ever coming back when we go away, even if it's just to go to get the mail at the end of the driveway, we don't really know that this isn't our new forever. Because they said stuff to us when we got on the bus or when they dropped us off. We weren't listening. We're all excited and curious and a little bit, concerned. We don't know if this is the new forever. We don't know it at the end of the day when that bell goes again. Why does that bell keep going? That maybe they're going to assign us to a room and this is the new place we live. We don't know. And part of our concern, upset, confusion, discomfort is the feeling that somehow somebody lied to us. That this wasn't our forever home where we have our favorite pillow and the cat always throws up on the rug at 3 a.m. This isn't ours forever. This isn't our space. This isn't our cave. This isn't our tribe. Because if it were, why would we be here? And it's exhausting. And depending on the circumstances that we bring with us and the situation that we find ourselves in, we can carry that upset, that confusion, that trauma until a few minutes ago. Because we've never looked at it. We've never thought about it. We've never dealt with it. So the conversation today, why do we let them ignore our boundaries? Mostly it's because we didn't think we had to police it. We didn't think we had to say, papers, please, no crossing here before 8 a.m. and after 5 p.m. We thought it was understood. We thought our comfort, our priorities would be respected automatically. Turns out, not true. And not because they don't like us or they don't care necessarily. It's just not the way they do it. Remember the story I told you when I was finally old enough to go out for a sleepover? And I'm an only child. Go for a sleepover. When I came back the next morning, my mom and dad said, "How was it?" And I said, "They squeezed their toothpaste the wrong way." I was 47. No, I was very keen but slow. I was very young. And the big thing was getting ready to go to bed and waking up in the morning. And what are they doing? What are they doing? This is a space where everything is always exactly the same. We always do it this way. They're doing it different. That's not how it's done. Yes, it is. Oh, it isn't? They're surprised by me. I'm surprised by them. It's a wonder we were able to talk to each other before we went to sleep. That's why it stuck with me. The next morning, it happened again. You'd think they'd learn a lesson, which is what they were thinking about us too, by the way. So when we come home, all the way home, we're having second thoughts about this friend that we wanted to spend this time with. I mean, if they'll do that with their toothpaste, what else will they do? And how am I supposed to know ahead of time? I mean, when do I get to lay down there? There'll be none of that while I'm here. You can do that on your time. When do I get to do that? What do you mean never? What do you mean it's not my house, not my rules? Can't I stand up for something? Yeah, but don't pick squeezing the toothpaste as the hill you're going to die on. Pick something bigger. Something bigger. Like what? Well, I don't know. Boundaries. When I was in college, I had a girlfriend who went through a great deal of emotional upheaval. Her family was complicated. And at one point, we were in class and she said, "Is there any chance I could stay at your apartment over the weekend? And I said, sure. Why? And she said, it's just complicated. And I said, absolutely. Put it out of your mind. Absolutely. And she said, oh, thank you. So then the next day was Friday and she came with a little bag. And so there we are for the weekend. And we were good friends. You know, we got along really well. And so we went and did stuff and shopping and whatnot, had homework and so on. And I said, what happened? And she said, there are new rules in the house. And I'm not welcome. And oh, honey, I'm so sorry. And then she said, listen, later on today, I'm dating this new guy. Can I invite him over? And I said, absolutely. Mi casa, su casa. So later on in the afternoon, this guy came over and I had in my living room, I had found an old, battered, but beautiful vintage steamer trunk. You know, the ones with the leather straps and the heavy buckles and the iron rivets and all that gorgeous thing. I mean, I found it in a secondhand store. And it was great because, I got my friends coming over and they spill stuff and it doesn't matter because it's indestructible. Anyway, this fellow I'd never met before ignored me walking in, said to my girlfriend, who is my guest for the weekend, get me a beer, walked into the living room, sat down on the couch in the middle with his arms out and put his feet on my steamer trunk. And I walked in and I said, my name is Abby. And he said, so? And I said, it's my apartment. And he said, so? And I said, so take your feet off the coffee table. And he said, why? It's just a garbage trunk. And I said, let me explain this to you in words you can understand. It's my apartment, my trunk. And you don't know me well enough to be this rude. So you're taking your feet off the trunk. The beer is not coming. You're leaving. And she, just as she walked in with the beer, and she said, oh, Abby, he didn't mean it. And I said, I meant it. No, he's like that. And I said, okay. And I'm like this. Get out. And he looked at her and he said, some friend you've got, are you coming with me? And she looked at me and I said, it's up to you. And she took a deep, shuddery breath and she said, no. And he left. As he left, he said, your loss. Slammed the door. And I looked at her and I said, you couldn't be at home because the house had new rules. And they didn't include you. And this is the guy you're crazy about, who also has rules that don't include you or your friends. Do you see a pattern here? And what, good morning, Daniel. And she said, well, he's nice sometimes. And I said, you're lovely all the time. You need to decide if you have value. And the thing is so beautiful. And oh my God, IQ, unbelievable, in the stratosphere. But she had no sense of self-worth. And whether it was taught to her at home or the seeds were planted at home and everywhere she went, as she went to school and went out socially, she just kept gravitating to familiar people who were behaving like that. And by the time I knew her, she had absolutely no understanding that people were trespassing all over her. She didn't know how to police her boundaries. And then, but because she is very clever and very funny, she said, I did like the look on his face, though, when you pulled out your Abby card. Gapped. She said, I've never seen him look surprised before. And I said, well, good. Looks good on him. So when somebody decides that my values and my priorities, good morning, beautiful Marnie. Thank God she had me. It's a very funny thing. Marnie, I sometimes post the black and white pictures of me because they're beautiful pictures, and who wouldn't, right? And I have pictures of me in a black raincoat, and then I have pictures of me in a white dress, and sometimes I'm wearing a hat. So when she was staying there, she said, "Oh my God, that white dress is to die for. Can I try it on?" And I said, "Sure." So she was almost 6 feet and built like a leaf in the wind, turns sideways and she doesn't get wet in the rain. I, on the other hand, I'm a little more this, right? She put on the dress and I walked into the bedroom and we're both looking at her in the mirror. And I said, "Well, that's fabulous on you." And she said, "I know, right? It suits me much better than you." I said, "No, it doesn't suit you better. It fits you differently." And she said, "Well, I don't see why you're keeping it." And I said, "Because it's mine." And she said, "Oh, God." And I said, "The lesson we were just having." And she said, "Yes, yes, yes. Can I wear it today?" "No, no, you can't. Take it off." And this is the thing that I think as we lean into our new month, and not just another one of the many months of the year, but the back to everything month, right? We need to be reminded, we need to remember that our sense of priority is our sense of priority. It is not a universal sense of priority. And that when we say to people, we may feel that we know really well, we may feel that they know us really well. And yes, she had a big learning curve. Yes, she did. Hysterical. Take the dress off. Looks better on me. When we suddenly realize that when we have said this right here, this is important to me, this matters to me, this is a priority to me, I am pouring my heart and soul into this. Even if we say, "I hope you respect that," even if we don't say, "I hope you respect that," that first statement is the sign that says property of, passion of, purpose of, path of. It doesn't say trespassers welcome. It doesn't say blur the lines at will. It says this is huge for me. And when people either cannot grasp it, don't have the capacity to understand it, or don't have the capacity to respect other people's passion, purpose, priority, path, their behavior will reflect that. We have choices, always three, sometimes more. We can call them on it and either create a scene or just be firm. We can let it slide. Oh, well, just this once, and then deal with the fallout after that. Or we can show them what happens when we are underestimated. We can show the world what happens when people don't think we're smart enough or quick enough or determined enough or passionate enough to not only say, "Halt, who goes there?" but no, in a different way, in a way that sends the message, in a way that makes it clear that that behavior and the thinking behind it is not acceptable, never was, never will be. I want to tell you two quick stories about this. When I was talking to Roger Price, the producer of You Can't Do It on Television, at one point about the kids, because I make a joke about why is it always all about them? Why do we have to have children in it? It's a children's show. I know, but really, and I'm making fun of it. He said, do you seriously not like children? And I said, Roger, it's the umbrella statements are misleading. I I am very, very deeply, deeply attached to some individual children. In some cases, it feels like we were separated at birth many years ago, many eons ago, many lives ago. I am also put off by some children. I look at them and I look at their behavior and I think, I see no purpose in this. Why should I have to be here for that? I feel that way about humans of all sizes, creatures of all sizes. However, I am really passionate on the behalf of individuals who cannot fend for themselves. Children haven't been here long enough to have any authority. They're not tall enough or big enough to reach the counter where the keys to the cars are. They can't walk into a bank and open a bank account and take out a loan. They don't have collateral. They have a teddy bear. And pretty much when they eat and whether they are clothed or not is up to somebody else. They live at the pleasure and displeasure of others. And sometimes they get a great deal, and other times they get a raw deal, and other times it's okay. And I feel passionate about the unfair parts of it. Not that I'm going to ride to their rescue, but I'm certainly going to stop people if I can, while I'm present, from taking advantage. At this point in our heads, we're all saying, pick on somebody your own size. The other group I feel exactly the same way about are the elderly, who aren't surrounded by loving family and friends who care. People who have been cut adrift, and they're not young anymore. Something has aged them, whether it's what they've done to themselves or what life has dealt. I feel passionate about them. That if it's possible for them to have a better deal, they should have a better deal. Do I plant my sword and die on those hills? No. But I don't put up with people behaving as though certain lives have less value. I refuse. I don't take one side or the other in which lives and which conversation and which group, cultural, social, economic, racial. That's not relevant. What's relevant is the freedom to swing your fist stops just beyond my nose. And if you misjudge or don't care, well then, underestimate me. That'll be fun. The thing about Vikings is that we invented the element of surprise. Get even? No, not getting even. Even means level. No. I'm restoring the balance to where it originally was, which was in my favor. The object of the exercise going into September is this. Do you know your boundaries? Do you know what you feel is right? Do you know who you are? And I don't mean who you are as in the role you play, as in I'm the daughter of, the son of, the sibling of, the parent of, the teacher of, the neighbor of, the friend of. I don't mean tinker, tailor, soldier, sailor, teacher, caregiver, cop. I mean, do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? What you stand for? What you dream of? What makes you smile? What makes you sad? That's who the boundaries are for. The boundaries are for the person who deserves to have their space and to feel safe, to feel seen and heard and respected and valued. And whether anybody else has a different opinion and a different set of values, that's theirs to own. That all those things they do, that's theirs to own. And they can do that to their heart's content, right up to the outside of my boundary. And if they do it too close to my boundary and the ripple effect splashes on me, underestimate me. That'll be fun. We invented the element of surprise. Keep that in your head. You don't have to be the fierce and fiery and terrorizing Viking. But you do get to own the space you stand in. You do get to own who you are and what you stand for. And when you make it clear, this matters to me, people have a choice. They can say, so what? What do I care? They can say, that seems stupid. And they can also say, oh yeah? Well, maybe I'll take it. And then see how you like it. And in any of those cases, good morning, Dwayne. How lovely to see your comment. You and I need to talk soon. I love you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have somebody who can attest to the fact that I say what I mean and I do what I'm saying. Oh my God. Leading into this next month, leading into big mistake, big, huge. Good morning. Here's the thing. Leading into this new month, leading into new exciting things, new paths, new opportunities, new dreams that we dream, new sweat and toil, sweat equity and toil that we invest, new hopes, new excitements. Keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the reason you came. Keep your eye on who you are. And if it causes you pain, if it causes you sadness, if it causes you any kind of discomfort, to realize that someone either never was what you thought or used to be and changed, that this is the time to look at your life as a book. It's your book. You are the author. You hold the pen. But some of the chapters were pre-written. And all chapters in all books come to an end. And we turn the page to see what happens next. And I don't mean don't care. I mean, be grateful for the chapters. Be grateful for the learning curve. Be grateful for the fun and the excitement and the disasters while they lasted. And then, if you want to be a writer, contact me and we'll get even. Because it's a big month. Big things are happening in the world. Big changes. It happens every year. And every year it seems like it's the biggest one. And going into it, having had some time to do something different in the summer months, dealing with things we didn't see coming, being excited about surprises. We don't always take the time to prepare for this. And that's why this video today, leading into your new beginnings. The program I've been working on for 7 years, Pivotry in Motion. Pivotry is what has to happen in your head. There has to be a shift before you can physically change direction, change purpose, shift paths. Pivotry in Motion is where we often need help to get perspective, to believe in ourselves. And the other part of the project, the lion effect, essentially is I'm walking here. And the thing is that unless we remind people, they forget. Unless we tell them in no uncertain terms, they will think the street is theirs. And as Dwayne discovered at a fairly early age, that's not always completely true. The good news is we still love each other. We're still talking to each other. So a lot of the bleeding and the sudden screaming in the middle of the night has faded. The stains have come out of the pillow from the tears. He no longer jumps at sudden noises. Abby's here. What? Because the good things that are meant to last always do. So with all of that said, a ton of things are happening this weekend. A ton of changes and shifts are being made. There's a ton of opportunities coming. And Gary Swithenbank and I are building this wonderful set of workshops and trainings and one-on-one consults and speaking opportunities. We've got this great idea for a whole speakers group you're going to love. And we're hitting the ground running with it in the next couple of weeks. So if you are feeling set adrift, if you are feeling that the rudder is missing something, you know where to find me. And we'll talk. And I will help you shift. Because the other thing Vikings were good at, other than surprise and fishing, was navigating. And I can help you find your way. All right? So I always end these little videos. Dwayne, if you haven't seen them before, I always end these videos by saying two things. Be good to you. You deserve it. And remember to hug your loved ones because they deserve it too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining, whether you're the first or you've been here since the beginning. Dwayne, by the way, this is episode 388. So there, that's a lot of videos. I will see you next week. I will have new, different, exciting things to share. Tell your friends if you're enjoying this. And be very, very safe this weekend. It's a crazy world out there. Okay? Thanks.